As Travis sped down California Route 190, he was so pleased that he had gotten his AC fixed the week before. The land outside his temperature-controlled Jeep was almost alien. Death Valley is one of the most scenic and astounding stretches of desert drives in the United States. And the landscape before him was a mix of camel tan sand, rugged sagebrush, so dry and brittle it could spontaneously combust at any moment. The sky was a solid cerulean that stretched beyond the distant mountain ranges. Occasional tumbleweeds rolled lazily across the long, flat highway. And the cry of coyotes could be heard in the distance. Well, could have been heard if Travis turned down the blaring music. He had prepared thoughtfully for this drive. He had a CD case jammed with mixes, a bag full of snacks and treats, a flat of waters in the car, and a jug of water and coolant for the Jeep, in case she needed a drink also, and a fresh Slurpee from the very last gas station before the next 60-mile stretch of nothingness. They jacked the prices up, as they knew it was the last stop for a cold drink. But Travis was not going to bear the 125-degree heat without a blue raspberry slush. It was worth the eye-watering $4. Slurpee in hand, Foo Fighters making confessions through the stereo, and AC blasting, Travis hit the road, trying not to be lured into speeding and keeping one eye out for the 5-0 at all times. It was a killer drive. A flat, straight road stretching off into the distance like a cartoon drawing of the desert. The asphalt, so hot, silver pools puddled on the road before him. A mirage of heat haze, reminding him what a precious resource water is in such an unforgiving land. As one mix CD came to a close, Travis dug around for his trusty copy of Follow the Leader. Tracks 3 and 8 were scratched beyond belief, but Freak on a Leash and Children of the Corn were okay. So it was time to amp it up and really enjoy the rest of the journey. About 2 hours and 2.5 CDs later, Travis spotted a man walking down the side of the highway coming towards him. At first, he thought it must have been his imagination, a trick of the heat and the light, like the viscous mercury pools that stretched out ahead of him. But on closer inspection, it was clear that this man was real. Red ball cap, khaki cargo shorts, t-shirt slung over his left shoulder, and black sunglasses working overtime. Travis turned off the music and pulled over. Where the hell had this guy come from? And better yet, where was he going? "Dude, you okay?" Travis called out the window, a wall of heat slapping him in the face. With cracked purple lips, the man began to respond. But Travis immediately hopped out of the Jeep, opened the trunk, and got the wanderer 2 bottles of water. He drank them down greedily, water spilling down his front, creating clean rivulets where the dirt and dust once clung to his chin and chest. After downing the second bottle and crunching it in his fist, he gave Travis a wide, toothy grin and thanked him earnestly, before gesturing to a third bottle. He had to be about Travis's age. Tall, bright smile, dusty blonde hair puffing out of the back and sides of his sun and sweat-soaked Red Sox hat. "You're gonna fry out here. You need to put a shirt on." "This one's dead. Ripped it getting out of the car," the man responded. "Here, take this one." Travis threw him an old college tee he had languishing on his back seat. The virtue of having a cluttered car, he thought to himself. "Let's get in the car. The AC is heaven. The pair hurried into the vehicle as the man pulled on his gifted shirt. What's the deal, man? You could literally die out here. As alarmed as Travis was, he was far more confused. My car overheated a few miles up. Been waiting ages for someone to pass, but it's been all quiet on the dusty front. Where's the CHP when you need 'em? Well, I got water and coolant. Will that help? That's perfect, the passenger beamed. You're like my guardian angel. No worries, man. Us Fenway faithfuls gotta stick together. As the pair drove on, they chatted about the Red Sox, the heat, the price of gas and Slurpees, and how easy it is to speed on this long strip of highway. As the miles ticked on, Travis wondered how the man had made it as far as he had. He must have been super desperate and in shape. The heat alone was killer. In the distance, Travis saw a flurry of red and blue police lights flashing in the sunlight. As he approached the barricade of California Highway Patrol cars, he slowed to a stop. He rolled down the window as a trooper clad head to toe in tan walked over to the car. Sorry, sir. Road's closed. You're gonna have to wait a while, I'm afraid. Looks pretty serious, Travis responded as he careened his head to look over the fortress of Crown Victorias. It is. An old VW was parked on the side of the road, and someone going way too fast plowed into the back of him. Travis could see wisps of it now, a mangled mess of orange beetle parts littered across the street. Everyone okay? Travis asked. I'm afraid not, the trooper responded grimly. It's gonna take a while for EMS to get here. You're gonna need to park up and wait. Turn the car off. That means the AC too. We don't want you overheating or running out of gas. Travis complied and pulled over to the far left. From here, he had a better view of the wreckage. He switched off the car and immediately felt the heat take over. He went to reach into the back seat to grab a couple of water bottles. Yet as he turned, he realized that his new friend was no longer in the car. Confused, Travis cast an eye over the hectic crash site. Where had the man gone? He didn't hear him slip out, but maybe he didn't want to interact with the cops. Perhaps his story wasn't as kosher as Travis had assumed. But he had to be somewhere. Travis got out of the Jeep and walked towards the line of CHP vehicles. As he got closer to the cars, he could see more clearly the remains of the tragic collision. The VW was a twisted and mangled mess, a pool of blood visible next to the driver's side door. And there, among the shattered glass and crushed chrome, was an old, dusty and faded Red Sox hat. Aghast, Travis focused on the rest of the scene. And there, 20 yards from the crumbled VW, stood a black Jeep Wrangler. A trooper on the floor next to it, trying to resuscitate a very lifeless Travis. friends, it's Becca. For the past 5 years, the West London Witch team has been dedicated to bringing you the best supernatural stories at the highest studio quality. And by team, I mean me and my buddy Danny. We do this work totally for free because we love it. We're proud of our content and appreciate the wonderful interactions we get to have with storytellers and listeners just like yourself. If you're enjoying the West London Witch, maybe consider joining our Patreon. It's a way to further engage with us and show your support for two creatives. If you're in a position to spare enough each month for us to grab a cup of coffee in between edits or add to the piggy bank for a new microphone, we would love to see you in our Patreon community. But I know times are tough, so if you're not in a position to join Patreon right now, that's okay. We aren't going anywhere. Head on over to patreon.com/The West London Witch. For as little as £1, $1, €1 a month, you can gain full access to our coven, a space where we share behind-the-scenes stories, dive deeper into each episode, answer your questions, and have special little treats to thank you for sharing your love and kindness with your favorite little witch. Hello, and welcome to episode 111 of The West London Witch, a podcast where we share stories about those moments where we find ourselves very much not alone. Today we have returned with our 5th installment of Tales from the West London Witch Crypt. Although we are primarily a long-form narrative podcast, this series of shorter spooky stories has quickly become a treasured tradition around here. Where most of our episodes focus on one storyteller, one location, or one theme, today's stories are all completely unconnected. They come from all over the world, shared by different storytellers, set in different locations, and cover different types of hauntings. But they are all fascinating and frightening. I hope you enjoy this continued anthology of boo moments. I'm Rebecca Strazina, and this is The West London Witch, episode 111, Tales from the West London Witch Crypt, part 5. Chapter 1, Hotel Haunted.
So back in 2005, I was just getting out of college. I was finishing a 2-year course with travel and tourism. And so I was kind of looking to get into a co-op within it was like the last month of my course. I live in Guelph, Ontario, Canada. And we've got a few local small towns around us that are very touristy, especially during the summer months and the fall months. So there's a small town called Elora, which is where my co-host Avery lives. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, quaint little town and a small little downtown right on the river and flows into it's called the Elora Gorge, and then that flows into their conservation area. They have an old grist mill, which had been transformed into a hotel in the late 1960s. And I've always loved this town, and I've always loved this hotel. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to apply and see if I can get in for a co-op in this hotel. It's close by to my house. It's close to friends. It's close to family. I have family that way also. So I applied, and I ended up getting a job at the hotel.
The Elora Mill Inn is a darling yet refined boutique establishment, overlooking the dramatic Grand River. It's a very small hotel, only about 30 rooms, and is exquisitely decorated. A real luxurious destination. Peaceful, relaxing, romantic.
So it's got a main building, and it had 3 floors of rooms, very small, very quaint. But then on the outside, there was also an old old little building, is a little small house, and it was called the James Ross House, and it had originally been the house for the owner of the mill at the time, and they kept it on the property, and they used it as an event space for any weddings, bachelorettes, bridal showers, baby showers. And then it also had 2 exterior buildings located that were part of it. They converted into some rooms.
Mandy loved the hotel. It was a wonderful place to work. She enjoyed her coworkers, the guests, and she never tired of being in such a beautiful location. But once she switched to the night shift to take on the role of the night auditor, things changed.
It's kind of like as soon as midnight came around, it was a completely different vibe in the hotel. And I had heard stories, like guests would fill out papers and say, oh, I stayed in room 306 and I felt like someone was watching me. And someone would, say, oh, I stayed in room 407. I thought I saw someone in the bathroom of my room. And I was kind of like, that's interesting. Just kind of figured that they had an imagination and they just wanted to put something down and fun and feel spooky because it's, an older building. And as I started to work the night shift, I started to hear some things and I started to see some things. And usually when I would work night shift, I was by myself. There was typically no one else in the hotel besides the guests. I had quite a few different experiences. The first experiences I had myself were in the dining room and the lounge of the hotel. I remember I would hear random noises. So you would hear people upstairs as if they were walking around, moving chairs around, cleaning up. And I was used to this on busy times. But when no one was in the hotel, I was like, who's here? Who stayed that I missed that wasn't, that I didn't see leave out that front door? And I had gone up quite a few times to check, and there was never anybody up there. And that's when I was like, okay, this is interesting. Do I want to stay on working night shift? Kind of not really, but I'm a night owl, so I enjoyed the time.
One of Mandy's duties was to run a night audit for the hotel restaurant. She would print out reports from each POS system and the cash registers and generate an end-of-day report. She spent loads of time running back and forth through the closed hotel restaurant.
All the servers would set the tables before they left that night. So they have nice tables in the morning for breakfast and no one had to set them. And I would walk through the dining room and notice like a fork out of place or knives on the floor or napkins on the floor. And I'm like, the servers would not leave it like this. So I'd pick it up and be like, oh, maybe they knocked it over and didn't notice. So I'd pick them up, swish them out, put new ones in. And then I would head downstairs to the lounge and do what I needed to do. And I would come back up. And every time you came back up, you had to pass by. It's like an old wooden dresser because they had gorgeous furniture in there. So there was an old wooden dresser and I would notice drawers would be open and I would have to close them. But I knew they weren't open when I walked past it the first time. So I'd be like, oh, interesting. And I close the drawer. And old dressers, if you try to open them, they're not easy to open. They're right on the wood rails. They get stuck. They make a lot of noise. And so this would happen often. And then I started to hear the elevator. So the elevator would go, it was an old elevator, and it would go down to the lounge, back up to the main floor. You'd hear it go all the way up to the 4th floor. There's only 3 floors, so it's 2, 3, and 4. And so you'd hear it go all the way up to the 4th floor. And then you'd hear it come all the way back down. And it did this nightly. And it would do this between 3 and 5 a.m. every night, which I did a little bit of research on the place and found out that when it was a grist mill, it actually had a fire. So it had a lot of damages. And then there seemed to be this little legend going around that there was a little girl who ended up perishing in a fire in the grist mill. So I still don't know if the legend's true to this day. I still done tons of research on it, but that seemed to be the legend that floated around, all the workers at the hotel and even some of the locals. So I'd always say, oh, it's a little girl in the elevator. She's just going for a ride all the time.
These experiences never really scared Mandy. She found them more interesting and exciting than frightful.
However, that was not the same when I would have to go to the second, third, and fourth floor during early morning hours. So if they wanted to have breakfast in their room, they would fill out a paper. And I absolutely hated going to the fourth floor. That was one space I did not like at all. I would get chills and the air would just feel heavy. And I legit, even I worked there when I was pregnant also. So I would legit just run down the hallway and run back and be terrified. And the halls weren't that long. There was maybe 6 rooms on each floor. There wasn't many. And some days it actually would get to the point where I actually didn't go to that floor. I would say, oh, no one filled it out. Most of the time, nobody did. And it was bad. I shouldn't have. But I was terrified of that floor. And that floor, there was a room, which I'd mentioned previously, called 407, where someone had seen a shadow person in the bathroom. I guess we got so many complaints over the years prior to when I started there that they actually ended up closing that room and no one used it as a guest room. It was mainly used as like a storage room. They would put extra things in there. If you're a staff member and you couldn't go home because it was storming, or you had to be up really early and you lived too far, or you weren't feeling good, stuff like that, they would save that room for staff members to be able to stay over in, and no one ever wanted to stay over. So they'd be like, no, I'm good, I'll just drive home, because no one ever wanted to be in that room.
It wasn't just the 4th floor that creeped Mandy out. The outbuildings had their own very unsettling energy.
So the 2 outer buildings I would have to walk to in the middle of the night. I didn't like it, especially when I was pregnant during that time. And it was, you would come out the front door and you would kind of walk up the hill of the driveway, cross a little road, and then you'd have to go to the back of the property and go down some stairs and then in the back door. And I hated the feeling of going into that building also. I kind of would do the exact same thing and be like, oh, I went and checked. No one wanted anything. There was nothing filled out. Not great for my job, but I just never felt safe. I think maybe the biggest thing is I just didn't feel safe walking to and from the front door to that room. And especially because there was a night where I was there by myself and I had locked the front door, and all of a sudden I heard like banging, like a knock, but it was like an aggressive knock at the front door of the hotel. It was an old regular door. It wasn't those sliding doors you get at the bigger chain hotels. So you locked it with this little Allen key, and it was an aggressive knock. And I would say it was probably like close to midnight. So I go out and I was like, oh, maybe someone's checking in late, or maybe they're coming to see if there's a room. You never know. So I got out and I opened up the door. And as I opened up the door to look out into the parking lot, I didn't see anybody. I didn't see any person. I didn't see any cars. I looked kind of down to the end of the parking lot, which is a dead end. I looked up the street a little bit, because when you looked to the right, you could see straight up to the main street. All the lights were lit up. Nothing. There was no one there. And of course, I'm in this hotel by myself as a worker. And immediately, what do? Call my mom. Don't call my boss. I called my mom. She drove 20 minutes down and she looked around for somebody, and she sat with me the whole night at the hotel because I was terrified.
That experience scared Mandy so much, she told her boss that she was never going to the outbuildings at night ever again. But she doesn't look back on it with fear or regret, but rather as a pretty neat memory of her time at the hotel. Chapter 2: Wild Oregon.
So for my birthday, I didn't want cocktails and cake. I wanted ghosts. And for that, I knew I had to head to Eastern Oregon. Now, let me set the scene. Because if you're listening in London, Oregon might mean rainy forests, craft beer, or maybe hipsters in Portland. But Eastern Oregon, it's nothing like that. Out there, the land opens wide, almost like stepping into a Western film set. Imagine miles of dry golden grass, sagebrush stretching to the horizon, and snow-capped mountains rising like stone walls in the distance. We drove into Baker City, which was once the richest town between Portland and Salt Lake. Back in the 1880s, they called it the Queen City of the Inland Empire. Imagine a frontier boomtown with gold in its pockets. Ornate brick buildings lined the streets, saloons clanged with piano music, cowboys swaggered down wooden boardwalks. And if you go today, it still feels like the Wild West, frozen in time. In the very center stands the Geyser Grand Hotel. Built in 1889, it was the pride of Eastern Oregon. This is where railroad barons, politicians, and ladies of high society came to stay. And of course, with all that grandeur comes its share of tragedies and hauntings. And I had a personal reason for staying there. Years earlier, my mom had checked in while traveling for work. She told me she lay awake all night, listening to what sounded like a huge wedding party. Music, dancing, people laughing. Finally, around 2 a.m, she called the front desk to ask when it would end. And the clerk told her, "Ma'am, there's no party. The bartender called out sick tonight. Nobody is here." That was it. I just had to go and see myself. So, we finally check in. We've got the cupola suite, the tower room, the most famous one. You open the door and you feel like you're stepping into another century. Pink velvet drapes, lace curtains circling the tower windows, a marble fireplace, and the biggest bathroom I've ever seen, with a soaking tub set into pink tile. And that's when he appeared. A cowboy. And not like a modern ranch hand. He looked like he'd walked straight out of 1889. Silk vest, bandana around his neck, faded jeans, boots with a layer of dust. His hat was tan, but stained dark with tar or mud. He leaned on the doorframe, grinning, and said, "What did you do to get this room? It's only for diplomats or important folks. Mind if I step in?" Before we could answer, he was inside. Hands in his belt loops, boots wide apart, just strolling around like he owned everything. He looked at the bed, the curtains, the tub. Then he says, "Well, this is the kind of room Jerry Garcia would have stayed in. You ever see him? Course not. He was dead before your time." We were frozen. And then, just as suddenly, he tips his hat and says, "Got to check out the library. They've got books from the past." And he was gone. Later that evening, we headed down to the library, then to the bar. The stained glass ceiling glows above us, the largest in the Pacific Northwest. It feels like sitting inside a jewel box. We're chatting with the bartender, and the phone rings. She answers, then hangs up looking puzzled. She says the caller didn't know what any of the menu items were, except the barley soup. A few minutes later, the cowboy strolls in. He drops onto the stool beside me, pushes a penny across the bar, and says, "Hey, I remember you from before. Did you ever read that bestseller?" I laugh and say, "What bestseller?" He grins, "The one where you save the world. You haven't written it yet, but someday you will." The bartender brings him his barley soup. He mutters about not recognizing all this fancy new food. Then he stands, turns to me one last time and says, "Don't forget to save the world." And just like that, he's gone. Shortly after, the woman from the front desk pulled me aside. She apologized for the cowboy's behavior, but then said something peculiar. The thing is, we can't prove that he isn't actually a time traveler. He's a paying customer, so we can't kick him out. I didn't seem to mind. I'd been a bartender myself, and I've met plenty of characters. Still, I carried her word upstairs, where the night stretched on strange. I filmed a few orbs, dust maybe, floating in the air of the old room. By 2 a.m, I decided on a bath. The tub was set in pink tile, the jets tucked away, the switch for them across the wall. I didn't touch them, I only wanted quiet. I made cocoa from the little beverage station and sank into the hot water. Then the pipes began to wail, a screech high and sharp like a banshee in the walls. The noise filled the room, rattling the tile. My chest went tight, worried it would wake the whole hotel. Then, silence. Somewhere down the hall, the door creaked open. Another guest listening, maybe ready to step out, then closing their door again when the noise stopped. I stayed in the bath until the water cooled, the cocoa long gone. Nothing else came. The next morning, the hotel historian showed us where the tunnels opened by the elevator. She was getting ready for her ghost tour. She said the spirits here are strong. And there are plenty of stories. The lady in blue, a socialite, drifts down the grand staircase. The chambermaid still tidying rooms. A little girl seen peeking from behind doors. And of course, the cowboy. Legend says a cowboy was shot after a poker game in the Cupola Suite. His sweetheart found out, screaming through the streets, and later hanged herself in grief. People still report hearing her screams in the night. I thought back to the pipes in my bathroom, shrieking banshee loud while I tried to take a birthday bath. And that cowboy, was he a ghost? A time traveler? Just a man too eccentric to place? He felt solid, real. But maybe that's the trick. Maybe we brush shoulders with ghosts all the time and never notice because they look too much like us.
Chapter 3. Spook School.
Just start a little bit. I work with children on the autism spectrum, doing kind of like behavioral therapy. And I got into the field when I was in my early 20s. So the very first company that I worked for, they were currently in the process of moving centers. So show up on my first day, they tell me, oh yeah, like we have to be out of this location by next week. So let's go over, check you into the new center, kind of get you used to everything. I had no idea what was in store for me, but I get over to the new center and it's actually an old abandoned church and parish. So we pull up and immediately I kind of start to get a little panicky. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. What's this going to be like? The church was being renovated into kind of like our gym. So all the pews were being taken out. The balcony was being blocked off just to ensure like the kids' safety and everything. And then the parish was being renovated into like our offices, kitchens, bathrooms, and like therapy rooms. So I got used to the area, got used to the job. I was just so ready to be in the field working with children, kind of pushed away all of those frightful feelings. And then one day, I was downstairs in one of our therapy rooms, and the therapy room had this big, gorgeous, like 5-foot window that would look out into the yard with the church over to the right side a little bit. And I was sitting there with one of my clients, and this client had emerging vocals come in. So we were working on speech, getting them to kind of label things in our area, surroundings, promoting all of the words that we could. This day, we're sitting across from each other at the table. This client jumps up in a panic, pushes the table kind of towards me so she can get a better view of the window, and she starts scripting this name over and over again, and she's aggressively tapping on the window, kind of just clanking it. And I was so alarmed at first. I just had really no idea what was going on. And then I started to piece the vocabulary together a little bit. And she was saying this name over and over again. And she had a deeper voice, so it kind of came out a little funny, but she was saying Sarah, Sarah, over and over and over again while tapping the window. So I start to look, thinking, okay, maybe like we're kind of in a neighborhood. There's a school close by. Maybe it's somebody walking by. I'm not too sure. So I look out and I'm kind of trying to follow her gaze, and she's pointing and looking at the church, saying this name, Sarah, 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 over and over again. So I'm looking, there's nothing there. There's nothing going around. Don't know. None of my coworkers are outside. I'm not too sure what's happening. So I just kind of redirect and continue on with our day. Later that day, we take the kids outside for recess, and our fenced in area was right beside the church. We had a big playground. They had the entire length of the church basically as their playground. And I can kind of see this same client hovering around the fence, looking at the church. And again, the church had big, beautiful stained glass windows. So I go over and I'm just checking her out, making sure she's okay, trying to get her to come and interact, play with the other kids. And she wasn't saying anything. She wasn't saying the name Sarah. She just was totally refusing to move from that spot where she was looking in the church.
Avery wasn't concerned, but rather interested in whatever was so captivating to the young girl. She was positively spellbound by something or someone inside the church.
And then for the weeks to follow, this client would just kind of have her back up a little bit and be tense whenever we went near the church. Never heard her chant the name Sarah again. She was fine going into the church, but she always just kind of put up a bit of a fight, kind of like her back was up towards it a little bit. Eventually, it was fine. She wouldn't be staring at the windows. She just carried on. That was the first week that I worked there. So immediately I was kind of like, oh, what did I get myself into here? What's going on? But that didn't stop me. I continued to work there. I worked there for 5+ years. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And I still work in the field, and that center is still operational now. And it's beautiful. But being in my early 20s, after a long day at work, sometimes it got intense. You want to just chit chat with your coworkers, kind of debrief a little bit, as most people do. But especially in your early 20s, you want to just gossip a little bit. So we had a late night one night where we would run a social group that ended at 8 p.m. This was the winter time, so it's obviously Canada. It gets dark at 4 p.m. And we're sitting there in the front chairs, and the way I'm positioned, I don't have a view of the playroom at all, but my coworker is positioned where she can see kind of straight through. And in the playroom, obviously, there's toys ranging for any age because we just dealt with a variety of kids. So we shut down everything downstairs. We make a joke that we have 3 seconds after we turn the light off to run upstairs, and then we're safe and nothing's going to get us. So we quickly do that. We run up, we sit in the chairs, we're chit-chatting, gossiping, all the fun stuff. It's probably 8:45 at this point, so it is quite dark, and we only have a few lights on, the emergency lights, the kitchen light right beside me, kind of the front door area. The door was locked. Again, we're in a little neighborhood, so it's a safe area. We're not concerned or anything. We're just chatting. And all of a sudden, we hear something kind of from the playroom right in front of us. Again, I can't see into it, but my coworker can. She's like, "Did you hear that? That was a little bit strange. I don't quite know what that was." And I was like, "Yeah, it sounded kind of like a thud." But it was very clear that it wasn't coming from downstairs. It was coming from the playroom. So we both get up to investigate a little bit, and we had shelves lining one corner of the playroom with a bunch of toys. And they were kind of cause and effect toys. So making lots of beeping noises, sounds, chimes, all that fun stuff. And one of them was this cube toy. It was just kind of blinking a light, but we know that you have to push the button to get it to activate. It wouldn't randomly turn on, and there was nothing close by where you could debunk it by saying it was squished or anything, but it was just a light blinking. We're like, okay, that's kind of strange. Whatever. We went, we turned it off, sat back down, continued to chit chat for a little bit. Probably half hour goes by, and we're like, okay, well, we have to be back here at 7 a.m. Like, we probably should go home now. Let's get up and leave. So we grab our stuff. I'm making sure the door's locked. We go to turn on the security system, and we hear a louder thud. And I was like, okay, in good conscience, I'm going to go check it out because I just can't deal with something breaking and then it being my fault when I come in the morning. So we both walk into the playroom, and the same toy that was just going off half hour prior is now sitting directly in the playroom floor. And it's on, and it's like making all the noises, and all the lights are going off. I'm getting chills like reliving this story right now too. It was the creepiest thing I can say I've ever dealt with.
The two women were terrified. They switched off the toy yet again and secured it back on the shelf, ran to their cars, and bolted home.
Get up in the next morning knowing, okay, I have to be the first person at the center again. What am I going to do if I walk in and something else happens? So, having to face my fears, I have a client coming in. I'm alone with this client. I need to get in there. I get in, knowing that we put the toy on the shelf. When I walk back into that playroom, not only was the same cube toy on the ground, turned on, and lit up, there was also like a couple stuffed animals kind of like sprawled around on the floor also. And I thought to myself, okay, you know what? It's fine. It's daylight. I have to be here. My client's walking in. I have to put on a brave face. I can't let this client know that anything is going to happen. So I tidy up. I text my coworker, tell her that the same thing just happened. What the hell's going on? My client comes in. We have our session. All of my coworkers, my boss, they come in. I'm filling them all in. And like, what do I do? Like, I don't want to be here by myself anymore. Come up with this big game plan of like, there's always two people in the building. It was fine. The next week, I do the same Thursday social thing, and nothing happened. My coworker and I kind of just chalk it up like, it was a one-off. Whatever. It's fine.
And it was fine for a couple of years. But there was one last little boo moment that Avery got the pleasure to experience while working at the center.
We were downstairs in our therapy rooms, cleaning at the end of the day. And in the room that I had, there was a shelf that would sit kind of like right in the middle of the wall. And I would put my supplies on it, toys, extra stuff, just kind of have quick grab. And there was a bowl, like a big plastic bowl. And I don't remember what I had in it, but it was very secure on the shelf. And it must have been something light in there. I'm not too sure. But I was sweeping and my back was facing the shelf. My coworker, different one, that didn't experience the same thing I did years before. Different one was standing there talking to me, and I'm sweeping, not touching the shelf. Nobody's looking at it. She's not near it when this bowl comes swinging off. And luckily it missed me, but it kind of lands right beside me, and she's standing there staring at me. She's like, that's so weird. Like, I don't know how that happened. It was on the shelf. We pushed all the way back. I don't know. Maybe somebody bumped the wall beside us. Who knows?
Shortly after that event, Avery left for a new opportunity in a new location. But some places, some jobs, some students stay with you forever. And even after all these years, that school still haunts Avery's memory. That concludes today's collection of tales from the West London Witch Crypt. Chapter 1, Hotel Haunted, came to us from Mandy, the co-host of Thick Thighs and Creepy Vibes podcast. Chapter 2, Wild Oregon, was brought to us by Renee Anderson, a travel and lifestyle blogger who shares her love and adventures of her home state of Oregon on her fabulous blog, Wild Oregon Girl. To see more of Renee's work, search for Wild Oregon Girl and check out her blog and social media accounts. Chapter 3, Spook School, was shared by the other half of the Thick Thighs and Creepy Vibes podcast, Avery. Make sure you check out Thick Thighs and Creepy Vibes for Canadian-based true crime and paranormal tales wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you have your own boo moment you'd like to share on the show, please feel free to reach out to me. at the West London Witch at gmail.com, or come and find us on Instagram and Facebook. Do you have a spooky story you'd like to share? I'd love to hear it. Drop me an email at thewestlondonwitch at gmail.com, or find us on Instagram and Facebook at The West London Witch. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. And come and follow us for additional content on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. The West London Witch is created by me, Rebecca Strazina. Our sound designer and production magician is the incredible Danny Cross. Our theme music was bespokely written and performed by the wickedly talented Kyle Hall. Our cover art is the beautiful collaboration between Lizzie Wilson and Jake Bowser. Special thanks to Miss Sinead Bowers, our quality control and biggest cheerleader. And thank you to you, all of our listeners all over the world. These are your stories. Thank you for sharing them with us.